Boom. I'm Paul Cram. Wanted to talk a bit today about the book my book club just finished, The Voyeur's Motel by author Gay Talese. This is one of those books that I would say it's salacious and so much so it's we couldn't look away. It's a lot like that saying that they say about car accidents where it's like, oh my God, I can't look away. Oh my God, this is a book that's a lot like that. It was very unsettling to read, like so much so that there was points where I was like, oh my God, this is creepy. I don't know. Like I feel like I'm a part of this, what he's doing. Like, yikes. Um, Kind of a synopsis of the book would be that in 1980, I have his name written down. Gerald Foos wrote an anonymous letter to the author, Gay Talese, and he admitted to a crime that he was committing, an ongoing crime, and that was being a voyeur at the motel that he owned in Denver. What he did is he installed vents above each room and had what he would call like an observation platform that was above and it was carpeted. So like he was basically up above each of the rooms and he would look down and the people, if they looked up, could not see him through the vent. But he could see them and he would observe, he would watch the goings on in the rooms when people were in them, including sex, including pretty much everything that the people would do while they were in the room alone. And he would write it all down. He journaled it and had a sort of like a journal diary approach to it. Yeah. And so how the book kind of unravels, or not unravels, but how it kind of proceeds is like it starts with that letter and the author Gay, he throughout the entire book grapples with like, what do I do with this information? Am I culpable? Am I a part of this? Am I not part of this? Like, I'm a journalist. So like, is this news? What is this? And does a really nice job of like showing the ethics and sort of the questions and the morals involved in that whole thing and kind of keeps not teeter-tottering, but just showing different views of that throughout the entire piece. And yeah, so my book club read this book and I don't know, we found it fascinating and at the same time unsettling. It sparked a lot of discussions, obviously on ethics, morals, kind of that blurry line between what's true and maybe what's embellishment. From what I've already said, I'm sure you can gather like there's a lot of stories of sex included in this, and they are titillating sex stories. Like these are not just like, and then there was sex, next chapter. No, these are titillating stories with very graphic depictions and detail, including straight sex, gay sex, toys and like sex toy, like all the things that human beings do sexually is included. Not all the things, but you get the idea. There's even a point where in the story, like he was saying that Gerald was saying that he would leave out porn and sex toys in the motel room, and he would choose like when someone would come in to reserve a room, he would give them that room and then he would go and observe kind of like their reactions to that. And oftentimes what people would do is they would, I don't know, he just shared that like, one gentleman saw the porn magazine and while his wife was using the shower, the gentleman masturbated to it. Or a woman finds a sex toy and she uses it. And that's where one of the guys in my book club, he used to work at a hotel. And he just said, he's like, that was the point for himself that he was like, this is too embellished. This wouldn't happen, especially during that time frame of the 50s and 60s. There was such, especially like in the 50s, there was such those things were very taboo. Like pornography was very dirty and taboo. Maybe not so much in the 60s. but even access to it wasn't readily available as much as it is today. Today, I mean, you can have a phone, you can have an internet connection, and you've got access to not just porn, but like every kind of porn, you know. So he just said he's like that wouldn't happen. Like you would if you're going to rent a room, you're going to go and you're going to you'd go up to the front desk and be like, "What the hell? Like what did you not clean the room? What's going on? Like there's pornography and there, you know, like what?" And then another gentleman from book club, he pointed out, he's like, "Yeah, but it's also like there's that sort of like sketchy motel roadside vibe too." And like, I don't know. It raises a lot of really interesting conversation, a lot of questions. Um, I think the author towards the end of the book especially really started to also have those questions of like what is embellished here and what isn't. What's reality? And what really happened? What really happened? Or how much of this is Gerald Foos like embellishing and adding things that maybe weren't really happening? Um, One of the things that he talks about in the book that isn't quite so much related to like it is voyeurism, but it connects him to witnessing a murder. And that was something that the author tried to like actually figure out if that was true, by going and visiting the police station and like looking for a death certificate or a death record for this person around the time that Gerald Foos said that it happened. And he couldn't find it. So yeah, but there was also some questions about how records were handled at the point in time when that happened. So there's like just this gray area where it's like, it could be either way. Uh, yeah. So overall, overall, I think the book is worth reading. It was one of those things. I mean, I didn't, I may not have loved the book, but I devoured it. It's a kind of read that you don't necessarily want to revisit. But I mean, I couldn't stop turning the pages. It's a salacious read. Yeah, it's a bit wild, bizarre. Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's a fun read, but I would say that it's bizarre. And it's one of those things where it's like, huh. I also appreciated that towards the end of the book, Gerald Foos actually starts to point this out. Like, Gerald, when he started doing this, technology wasn't such that, I mean, there was Polaroid cameras, but they weren't prevalent. And then they become more prevalent. And towards the end of his life, actually, he started to observe and talk about like cameras. And Gerald just points out, he's like, I never took people's photos. I never videoed them. I just observed them and wrote, which I think is interesting because there's something in there where he's like trying to, I don't know what he's trying to do, but from my perspective, he's kind of making it like, well, what I did wasn't a big deal, but what everybody else is doing with like this monitoring stuff and like is horrible. I don't know. Again, it raises a lot of interesting questions around observation and like Big Brother and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. If you're looking for a titillating, salacious read that is thought provoking, I would definitely recommend it. Um, yeah. So enough about that book. I don't really think I have anything else to tell you about it. Uh, but I do want to mention before I'm done here, the next book that my book club is reading is Serpentine. And this is a 1979 bestseller. It follows the story of, I can't remember his name. It's Charles, let's see, Sobrage, I believe. Um, yeah, Charles Sobrage and his sort of con man antics throughout his life. And I don't know a ton about him or about the book. I know that it's a lot longer than what we usually read. So I'll give you some more insight in that, a little book review too, coming up next month. Until then, I hope you have the month and the day and the time and all that stuff that you deserve.